So the next panel here is policy headwinds and uncertainties in 2019.
I don't have a time.
This is going to be a very important panel because running a business is challenging. Running a business is difficult. And I'm excited to hear what those headwinds, what those challenges might be. Our panelists are Suzanne Beall, Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy, International Franchise Association.
Suzanne.
Suzanne, thank you so much for being with us today. Ben Brubeck. Hey, Ben, thanks for being here today. Vice President of Regulatory, Labor, and State Affairs, Associated Builders and Contractors. Tom Sullivan, Vice President for Small Business Policy, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, Tom, for being here. Joel White, President, Coalition for Affordable Healthcare Coverage, and my friend, and I think one of the smartest people who I know on the planet, is Brian Moran, founder and CEO of Small Business Edge, our moderator. Brian, take it away. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ramon. We're going to have to expand your universe a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and I appreciate Karen and the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel. I actually learned a ton on that last panel. My background is, real quick, about 30 years helping small business owners. I spent half my career in publishing. I was at the Wall Street Journal, Inc., Entrepreneur Magazine. I had my own publishing company, so for about 9 years I published the SBA's national magazine. Some of you may have seen that, Small Business Success. And today I run a company where we help not only business owners run better companies, but marketers do a better job targeting the small business market. So I'm constantly trying to learn about what's on the minds of business owners. And I have to tell you, today it's kind of true. Like, business owners, they don't have time to do anything other than to focus on what's 3 feet in front of them. So the idea of talking to them about healthcare and taxes and regulatory issues, they're going to put that right next to social media and say, I'll get to it. It's not on the front burner, but it's not on the back burner. So I think that is a larger discussion about how to get them engaged. It's almost like we need to tee it up for them and then let them hit it. But what I'd like to do is kind of expand on the last panel's discussion about some of the issues that you see with small business owners. So your constituencies, in many cases, they're very different. They have different needs, but there's also some commonalities. So, Joe, we'll start with you. Tell us maybe one or two things that you're working on in 2019 for small business owners that you're hoping to achieve this year.
Yeah, so great question. We are the coalition. We started in 2001. We're a coalition of businesses and payers and others who came together because we thought health costs were too high and rising too fast. Can anyone agree with me on that one? It's the number one issue we hear, particularly from small business owners. That's a major challenge. And so we've worked with a lot of folks on this stage to address additional options for employers, particularly small businesses. So a couple of years ago, the last administration imposed basically a tax on a business owner if they provided an HRA for their employees. Mm-hmm. And it effectively wiped out the standalone HRAs for small businesses. We fought that. We got a law passed that required a change to allow small businesses to continue to be able to offer HRAs. And this year, what we're trying to do is work with the administration and Brian and others who've done a fantastic job in trying to expand options for small businesses so we have additional options for small businesses. So this HRA rule that came out is an important change. It will put more tax incentives on the tables for small businesses, more options on the table for workers to be able to access more affordable policies. Big priority for us.
Okay. And so what your thoughts on the AHPs that Brian talked about? I mean, that, to me, in many cases, and me as a business owner, that's a game changer for me. That could potentially take, I'm hoping, they talked about cutting my premiums in half. That would be huge.
Huge. I think the Georgia one that he was talking about, we've seen about a 30% rate discount.
Wow.
Huge. Year over year. These are real dollars, going from 100 to 70 bucks in a monthly premium 1 year is a huge change. So it's big. The challenge with the AHPs is that, as Brian indicated, they're regulated at the state level right now. So the change they made was in the definition of the employer, which was needed and necessary and created some flexibility. But we're going to see maybe lots of AHPs in Georgia and maybe none in New Jersey. So we need to keep the pressure up on Congress to say, hey, these things are actually producing results for small businesses.
Right.
We want to pool our resources and get lower premiums.
I'll move my business to Georgia. And let the market speak for itself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And what I'd like to do is go down the line, and then we'll come back and talk about these topics. But Suzanne, what are some of the things that you would like to see achieved this year, things that you're working on?
Thanks, Brian. For everybody in the audience, I represent the International Franchise Association, and we don't necessarily represent franchise brands. We represent the contract of franchising. So we represent 1,400 brands: Marriott, Hilton, McDonald's, Wendy's, 7-Eleven, Children's Lighthouse, pretty much all the industries you can think of that use the model to license their brand and their logo to small business owners, which we call the franchisees. And we have active in our system over 30,000 franchisees, but there are 733,000 franchisees nationwide. And our job is to protect, promote, and enhance franchising. And the one particular issue in the actual title of this agenda today is actually perfect: uncertainty. The franchise model has been rocked by this joint employer debate since 2015. And to put it in perspective, franchising is all about trademarks. And when you have that agreement between the franchisor and the franchisee, that licensing arrangement is governed by trademark law. It's incumbent upon the brands and the franchisees themselves to ensure their brand is uniform and consistent across America, which is why when you walk into a Wendy's, a McDonald's, a Hilton, you experience the same quality and consistency wherever you go, which is why the brand standards usually include, if you have physical space, uniform requirements. You walk into a Wendy's, everybody wears the logo on their uniform, and then hopefully you also walk into a clean bathroom. Franchisees get really upset when other franchisees have dirty bathrooms because that ruins the brand for everybody. And so together, each brand is a community, and they agree to these brand standards. But what has happened, and this is all in litigation, is that those brand standards have been confused and used against our members in employment law. Typically, a joint employer historically is an entity that exercises only direct control over terms of employment, hiring, pay, scheduling, firing. But courts and the NLRB, an independent agency, have redefined what it means to be a joint employer in very vague terms. Now you can be a joint employer if you exercise direct, indirect, or unexercised reserve control. What does that mean? This is a lawyer's field day. So over the last, now going on 4 years, lawyers have been trying to figure out this uncertainty, and it is, we think, very vague, maybe unconstitutionally so, and we've been trying to work with Congress to provide some clarity. Our members are businesses. They don't frankly care what the lines are. They just want lines, and right now we don't have lines in employment law. But what we have said is that we actually know what the rules of the game are. Look to not employment law, but trademark law, because trademark law says brand controls are required by franchisors and franchisees to protect the brand, but they should not be used against members as evidence of indirect control in employment law. So we just actually put some numbers on our uncertainty. On Monday, when we submitted our regulatory comments, we found a 92% increase in joint employer litigation since 2015. Over 300,000 jobs lost because franchises are not opening due to this uncertainty. Brands are reticent to take on new franchisees. And we did an in-depth case study with 75 of our brands to find out other types of uncertainty. And like any business owner, you want to mitigate your risk. If you're large enough, you'll have a risk department. Most of our smaller brands, they take on outside counsel. They spend, at least 4 or 5 hours trying to figure out what these rules are. And in the meantime, they figured out, well, you know what? We need to peel back on benefits we used to give our franchisees. I'm not going to give them compliance assistance on the new overtime rule anymore because that might be indirect control. And so we've seen in the wake of this uncertainty, many, many more resources being diverted from opening up no locations, finding new franchisees, and in fact, bringing on outside counsel to, unfortunately, have no answers.
Ouch. That's when you think about that. I mean, that's